Lena stepped down from the stagecoach with shaky legs, holding her small travel bag close to her chest. The wooden wheels stopped turning. The dust settled in the warm afternoon air, and the people of Red Creek turned their heads to look at the newcomer. She felt their eyes on her before she even lifted her own. Her heart beat faster, and her fingers tightened around the worn handle of her bag. She had imagined this moment many times during the long journey, but now that it was here, she wished she could disappear into the soft shadows under the wagon instead of standing in the open. Exposed and frightened, the sun felt sharper than she expected, brighter than she was used to. It made her blink back tears, and she lowered her face so people would not see how overwhelmed she felt. The land around her stretched so wide, so endlessly open, that Lena felt suddenly very small. Everything was new: the dusty street, the wooden buildings with their hanging signs, the horses tied to the posts, the tall hills in the distance. She had never seen a place so big, and instead of excitement, only fear grew in her chest. She heard footsteps approaching, slow and steady, like someone who had no desire to rush her or crowd her. When she finally forced herself to lift her eyes, she saw a man standing a few steps away. He was tall, dressed in a clean but well-worn shirt, simple trousers, and boots covered in a fine layer of dust from the road. His hat shaded his eyes, but she could still see the gentle expression on his face. This was Cole Harrington, the man she had promised to marry before ever meeting him. Cole studied her carefully, not with judgment but with quiet understanding. He could see that she was trembling, that her lips pressed together as if holding back words or tears. Her small bag told him she owned almost nothing. Her lowered gaze told him she carried more fear than belongings. He took one small step closer and spoke in a soft voice, the kind a person uses with a scared animal or a child who needs reassurance. "You don't need to pretend with me." The words reached her like a warm blanket placed over cold shoulders. She looked up at him again, her eyes wet but searching, trying to understand if he truly meant what he said. She had expected impatience. She had expected disappointment. She had expected the kind of coldness she had known back home, from people who believed softness was weakness and emotions were troubles to be avoided. But she saw none of that in Cole. For a moment, Lena could not speak. She swallowed hard, trying to hold back the tears that had been building since dawn, and perhaps even long before that. She had cried quietly in the stagecoach when no one looked. She had cried behind her small bedroom door on her last night at home. But she hadn't expected to cry now, in front of the very man she was supposed to marry. She wiped her cheek, but the tears still came. Cole did not move to touch her. He did not crowd her with questions or try to rush her. He simply waited. He understood that sometimes a person needed to cry without being asked to explain. Lena finally whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't want you to see me like this." Cole shook his head lightly. "There's nothing to be sorry for." His voice was calm, steady, almost soothing. It surprised her how much comfort she felt from a man she had only just met. The weight in her chest loosened just a little. He reached for the bag in her hand, but not abruptly. He gestured first, letting her see his intention. When she gave a small nod, he took it gently from her and held it as if it were something important, not a small worn thing, filled with her few belongings. "Let's get you somewhere quiet," Cole said. "You've had a long journey." Lena nodded again, grateful for the invitation. The stagecoach driver waved goodbye, and the horses trotted away, leaving a cloud of dust behind them. With the last familiar sound gone, Lena felt the sharp sting of loneliness rise again. She did not know a single person in this whole town except the man walking beside her now. Red Creek was small, but to Lena, it felt enormous. Children played near the general store, a woman swept her porch, and two men hammered nails into a wooden fence. All of them paused to glance at her, not rudely, but curiously. She lowered her eyes again, feeling shy, feeling strange, feeling too different. She wondered if they whispered about her, if they knew she had arrived as a mail-order bride, if they guessed how desperate her situation had been. Cole seemed to notice her discomfort. He leaned slightly toward her, not enough to make her nervous, but enough to speak quietly without others hearing. "People here like to talk," he said calmly. "But they're good folks. They don't mean harm. Lena tried to smile, but her lips only trembled. She wasn't sure she believed him yet, but she liked the way he said it. Not as a promise, but as reassurance. They walked toward a brown horse tied to a post. It lifted its head when Cole approached. He patted its neck and said, "This is Willow. She's gentle. She'll take us to the ranch." Lena stared at the horse with wide eyes. She had never ridden before. Cole seemed to sense her fear again. "You'll ride with me," he said quietly. "I won't let anything happen to you." The kindness in his voice made her chest tighten again. But this time, not from fear, something warmer. Something she had not felt in a long time. Gently, he helped her onto the horse, making sure she was comfortable before mounting behind her. The moment he settled, she felt steadier. The warmth of a safe presence at her back. As they rode out of the town, Lena watched the homes fade into open land. The ranches spread wide across the horizon, the grass waving like soft green water. Birds flew overhead in slow arcs, and the wind brushed lightly across her face. The world was still huge and unfamiliar, but it no longer seemed threatening. Not with Cole guiding the horse, not with his steady hand holding the reins, not with the quiet way he breathed that made her think maybe he wasn't as confident as he looked, maybe he was just as careful and thoughtful as she needed someone to be. After some time, Cole finally spoke again, his tone gentle and respectful, as if he wanted to give her time before asking anything. "If you're scared," he said, "that's all right. Anyone would be." Lena hesitated. The truth was, she wanted to speak, she wanted to explain. But she feared that if she said too much, he would see how fragile she really felt and regret sending for her. "I didn't expect it to be so different," she whispered. "Everything is bigger, quieter. I'm not used to places like this." Cole nodded. "It takes time. You don't have to get used to it all at once." His words made her feel lighter again. She looked at the wide sky, wondering if she could someday feel at home under it. They reached the ranch as the sun dipped lower. The house stood tall and simple, with a porch, windows that caught the last golden light, and a peaceful stillness around it. Chickens wandered near the fence. A barn stood nearby, its door open where horses rested inside. It was rustic, but clean, cared for, and full of life in quiet ways. Cole dismounted first, then helped her down with gentle hands. "This is home," he said softly. "For as long as you want it to be." She looked at him, her eyes full of surprise. "You mean, I can choose?" "Of course," he replied. "You're not trapped here. You're not trapped anywhere." The words hit her with unexpected force. She had lived most of her life being told what she must do, where she must stay, how she must behave. No one had ever told her she could choose. Not truly. Tears rose in her eyes again. But these tears were different. Not fear, not regret, something closer to relief. Cole stepped back slightly, giving her space to breathe. "You've had a long day," he said. "Take your time. Rest. We'll talk when you're ready. There's no rush." As she stood in front of the home that might become hers, Lena felt something she had not felt in many years, a small, fragile hope. She looked at Cole, the silent cowboy with kind eyes and gentle manners. And for the first time since her long journey began, she believed that maybe this new life could hold more warmth than she expected. Maybe she could finally stop pretending. Lena woke the next morning to soft sunlight touching the curtains of her small bedroom. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was, the gentle warmth, the quiet around her, the smell of fresh hay drifting through the open window. It all felt like part of a dream. Only after she sat up and saw her small travel bag placed neatly near the door did she remember she was far from home. She remembered the long journey, the strangers in the town, and Cole's calm voice telling her she did not need to pretend. For a moment, she simply sat still, breathing slowly. She wanted to start the day without fear. She wanted to be brave. She placed her feet on the wooden floor and felt its coolness rise through her. It helped her feel steady, rooted. When she stepped out of the room, she found the house already awake. The scent of warm bread drifted from the kitchen, and she heard gentle sounds from outside, maybe the horses, maybe Cole working early as most ranchmen did. She made her way to the kitchen and found a small loaf of bread on the table with a jar of butter beside it, as if someone had left it there just for her. She guessed Cole must have woken up before dawn, prepared things quietly, and then gone outside without disturbing her. She didn't know why, but the small act made her eyes soften. It showed he was thinking about her comfort, even when she wasn't there to see it. After eating a little, she stepped out onto the porch. The morning air was cool and sweet, filled with the scent of grass and earth. Cole stood near the barn, brushing one of the horses. His movements were slow and steady, almost peaceful. The horse leaned into his touch, trusting him completely. For a short moment, Lena simply watched him. She wondered how someone could carry himself with such calm. She wondered how a man could be so quiet and yet make her feel less alone. Cole noticed her and lifted his head. He didn't smile too widely, just a small curve of his lips, gentle, respectful, warm. "Morning," he said. "Good morning," Lena replied, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Did you sleep all right?" he asked. "Yes," she said honestly. "Better than I expected." Cole nodded, pleased but not showing it in a big way. "That's good." There was no pressure in his tone. No expectation. He wasn't asking her to impress him or reassure him. He simply wanted to know she was comfortable. Lena stepped closer, her hands clasped together. "Do you need help with anything?" Cole shook his head lightly. "You're still tired from traveling. You don't need to rush into work. I want to help," she said quietly. "I don't want to be a burden." Cole paused, lowered the brush in his hand, and looked at her with a softness that filled her chest with strange warmth. "You're not a burden, Lena. Not now. Not ever." He spoke gently but firmly, as if he wanted her to believe the words deep inside. Lena's throat tightened. She nodded, even though she didn't fully believe she was free from being a burden. But she appreciated that he wanted her to feel that way. Cole went back to brushing the horse and then gestured toward another brush resting on a barrel. "If you'd like to help, you can brush Willow here. She likes gentle hands." Lena hesitated only a second before taking the brush. She stepped carefully to the horse's side. Willow turned her head slightly, as if curious about the newcomer. Lena reached out slowly and placed her hand on the horse's neck, feeling the warm, smooth hair beneath her palm. The horse relaxed under her touch, and Lena let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "You're good with her," Cole said softly. Lena felt shy at the compliment. "I've never brushed a horse before. Sometimes new things come naturally," he replied. They worked side by side for a while, the morning quiet around them. Though they were silent, it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. For Lena, it felt like a kind of peace she hadn't known in years. After the horses were taken care of, Cole guided her around the ranch, showing her where the chickens roamed, where the garden grew, and where supplies were kept. He explained everything with a calm voice, never giving too much information at once, never confusing or overwhelming her. "This is your home too," he reminded her gently. "You should know where everything is." The words touched her more than he could know. She'd never truly had a place she could call her own. Not in her childhood home, where she felt like a burden. Not in the crowded house of her uncle, where her presence was tolerated rather than welcomed. But here, on this ranch. Cole spoke as if she belonged. Later, they returned to the house. Lena offered to cook, unsure if she should or not. Cole accepted with gratitude but didn't expect anything fancy. "Whatever you're comfortable making," he said. Lena prepared a simple meal. Her hands shook a little at first, afraid of doing something wrong. But as she cooked, she relaxed. By the time they sat down to eat, she felt slightly more confident. Cole took a bite, paused thoughtfully, then said, "This is good." Lena's face warmed. Compliments were not something she received often. She lowered her gaze, smiling softly. "Thank you." They spent the rest of the afternoon quietly. Cole worked outside fixing a fence post, while Lena unpacked her few belongings, folded her clothes, and arranged them neatly in the dresser. It didn't take long. She didn't own much. But even placing her things in the drawers made her feel a little more settled. When evening came, Lena stepped out to watch the sunset. The sky was painted in warm orange and soft pink, stretching endlessly over the open land. She hugged her arms to her chest, feeling small but strangely safe. Cole joined her after a moment, standing at a respectful distance. "Pretty sight," he said. "Yes," Lena replied. "It's beautiful." Cole glanced at her, then back at the horizon. "When I was younger, I used to watch the sky every night. Made the world feel less lonely." Lena looked at him with gentle curiosity. "Were you lonely often?" Cole took a slow breath before answering. "My parents passed when I was young. I grew up mostly on my own. Had neighbors who looked out for me. But it wasn't the same." Lena's heart softened. "I'm sorry." He shook his head slightly. "Life takes its own path. I learned to be all right." Lena understood the feeling more than he guessed. She knew what it meant to grow up without steady comfort, without people who stayed. Her own parents were alive, but she often felt like a guest in her own home, always trying to be helpful, always trying not to cause trouble. After a quiet moment, Cole spoke again. "You don't have to tell me anything about your past, unless you want to. I won't ask." Lena looked down at her hands. "There isn't much good to tell." "There doesn't need to be," he said softly. "What matters is you're here now." His voice held a gentle certainty, as if her past didn't change her worth. For a few seconds, Lena didn't speak. Then, in a small voice, she said, "I wasn't wanted. Not really. My family cared, but there was always pressure. Debts. Expectations. My uncle arranged this marriage because he thought it was practical. I didn't have a choice." Cole's expression softened. "I'm sorry you went through that." Lena's eyes shimmered. "I didn't want to disappoint anyone, so I agreed. But when I arrived, I was so scared. I thought you would expect something from me right away. I thought I had to act strong or useful." Cole shook his head gently. "You don't. You only need to be yourself." The same words he told her the day she arrived. They still reached her the same way, warm, comforting, almost healing. She whispered, "I don't really know who I am without trying to please someone." Cole turned slightly toward her, still keeping a respectful distance. "Then you'll have time to figure it out. I'm not in a hurry." Lena felt a tear slip down her cheek, but she wiped it quickly. This time, she wasn't embarrassed. She knew Cole wouldn't judge her for it. They watched the sunset together, the sky fading into evening blues. Lena felt a strange warmth in her chest. Not love, not yet, but something like trust. Something like safety. Something like the beginning of belonging. When the night grew cool, they returned inside. Cole lit a lamp and placed it on the table. Its soft glow filled the small kitchen. "You should rest," he said kindly. "Tomorrow can be a new start." Lena nodded. "Good night, Cole." "Good night, Lena." As she walked back to her room, she felt lighter than she had felt in months. The fear had not vanished completely, but it no longer controlled her. She lay down on her bed, listening to the faint sounds of the ranch settling for the night. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she wasn't simply surviving, a future where she could grow, a future where someone truly saw her. And as sleep pulled her gently toward rest, she realized something important. Cole wasn't just a stranger she had come to marry. He was someone who cared enough to let her breathe, let her learn, and let her heal. Maybe life on this ranch could be more than a promise made by a letter. Maybe it could become a real home. The days on the ranch became gentler for Lena. Each morning, she woke with a little less fear and a little more peace. She learned how to feed the chickens, how to brush the horses, and how to make meals that Cole always appreciated, even when they were simple. Cole continued to give her space, never asking for more than she could offer, never rushing her into anything. His calm presence became the quiet rhythm of her days. But as her heart slowly grew lighter, a shadow waited in the corner of her life, something she had tried to forget, something she hoped would stay behind in her old country. That shadow arrived one afternoon in the shape of a sealed envelope tucked in the mail pouch, hanging by the porch door. Lena found it while sweeping near the entrance. Her name was written on the front in a familiar hand, the handwriting of someone from home. Her breath caught. The broom slipped from her fingers and landed softly on the wooden planks. For several long seconds, she simply stared at the envelope, afraid to touch it. When she finally picked it up, her fingers trembled. She knew this wasn't a friendly letter. She knew her family rarely wrote unless they needed something. And she knew deep in her heart that whatever was inside would bring back the same fear she had felt all her life. She took the envelope to her room and sat on the edge of the bed. With slow, careful hands, she opened it. The words inside made her stomach twist. Her family was struggling again. Debts had grown worse. They needed money soon. And since she was now living in a new country with a husband who had a ranch, they expected her to send back whatever she could. The tone of the letter carried no warmth, only pressure, written between the lines like heavy ink staining her peace. Lena folded the letter quickly, pressing it against her heart, as if she could quiet the fear rising inside her. She knew Cole had already been kind enough to give her a home, food, and safety. She didn't want to place any burden on him. She didn't want him to think she came with problems he never asked for. As the fear grew, thoughts rushed into her mind. Maybe she shouldn't stay. Maybe she shouldn't tie Cole to her troubles. Maybe leaving was the only way to protect him from the weight of her past. That evening, while Cole worked outside repairing a gate, Lena packed her small bag quietly. She didn't have much, only a few dresses, a hairbrush, and a scarf from her mother, but she folded each item carefully, her breath shaking with every move. She didn't want Cole to hear her. She didn't want him to worry, but she also didn't want to tell him goodbye. The thought alone made her chest ache sharply. When the bag was filled, she sat on the bed and stared at it. Her eyes stung with tears she tried to hold back. She thought she was being strong. She thought leaving would solve everything. But the truth was, the idea of walking away from this calm, gentle life made her feel more lost than ever. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "You're doing the right thing. You don't want to trouble him." But deep inside, another voice whispered back, a softer voice that sounded strangely like Cole's, "You're not a burden." Before she could decide what to do, she heard footsteps outside her door. A soft knock followed. "Lena?" Cole's voice was calm, but there was a hint of concern in it. "Can I come in?" Lena froze. Her heart thumped loudly in her chest. She wiped her cheeks quickly and tried to steady her breath. "Yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The door opened gently. Cole stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room. They stopped on the bag sitting on the bed. His expression didn't turn angry. It didn't even turn surprised. It simply softened, filled with quiet sadness and worry. "You're leaving?" he asked. Lena looked down, unable to meet his eyes. I don't want you to think I brought trouble with me." Cole took a slow step forward. "Tell me what happened." Lena held the letter tightly, afraid to show it. "My family wrote to me. They need help. Money. They expect me to send it soon." Her voice trembled as she continued. "I don't want to put that weight on you. You've already done so much. I don't want to make your life harder. Number send. Number sender. Number send. Number sender sender. Number sender sender sender." Cole listened without interrupting. When she finished, he let out a soft breath and walked closer. He reached out his hand not to take the letter, but to give her the choice. After a moment's hesitation, she placed the folded paper in his palm. He read it quietly, his eyes moving slowly across the page. When he finished, he folded it again and handed it back gently. "You were going to leave without speaking to me?" he asked, his voice warm, not hurtful. Lena felt tears rise again. "I didn't want you to feel responsible for my past. I thought if I left, you wouldn't have to worry about any of this." Cole shook his head lightly. "Lena, you don't have to carry everything alone. Not here. Not with me. She finally looked at him. His eyes were calm but filled with something deep, something steady, something accepting. You think walking away solves the problem, he continued softly. But it only hurts you. And it would hurt me, too. Lena's lips parted in surprise. Hurt you? Yes, Cole said simply. Not because I expect anything from you. Not because of promises or duty. But because I care about you. And I don't want you to feel alone. The room grew still. Cole reached up slowly and wiped a tear that had slipped down her cheek. His touch was gentle, careful, full of warmth. You don't have to pretend you're strong all the time, he whispered. You don't have to act like everything is fine. You can be scared. You can cry. You can lean on someone. That's not weakness. The words broke something inside her, not in a painful way, but in a way that released the pressure she had carried for years. She let out a trembling breath and covered her face with her hands as more tears came, soft and quiet. Cole gently took her hands and lowered them, not forcing but guiding, helping her breathe. You're not asking me to solve your family's problems, he said. You're just telling me what's weighing on your heart. And that matters to me. Lena sniffed softly. I don't want you to feel forced to help. Cole shook his head. Nothing about you feels forced. He paused, then added in a softer tone. I want you to stay. Not because of the letter. Not because of an agreement. But because you belong here. And you deserve a life where you don't have to live in fear of being a burden. More tears escaped her eyes. But these were warm tears, tears of relief. Tears of being understood. I don't know how to fix everything, she whispered. Then let's take it one step at a time, Cole said gently. We'll figure it out together. The word together settled deeply in her heart, like a soft blanket over cold memories. She realized she had spent so much of her life trying to be useful, trying not to trouble anyone, trying to earn her place. But Cole wasn't asking her for anything. He didn't measure her worth by what she could give. He simply cared. Lena lowered her gaze and whispered, I was afraid you'd think less of me. Cole shook his head softly. I think more of you than you know. Her breath caught. He stepped back just enough to give her space, but not so far that she felt alone. Stay, he said gently. Not because you have to. Stay because I want you to feel safe. Stay because this is your home now, if you want it to be. Lena looked at her bag, then at Cole. Slowly, she reached out and touched his hand, not tightly, just enough to show she understood. Enough to show she was choosing to trust him. I want to stay, she whispered. I really do. Cole nodded, his expression softening with quiet relief. Then stay. He took her bag and set it gently back in the corner of the room where it belonged. Lena watched him with a grateful heart. The weight of her fears had not vanished completely, but she didn't feel alone anymore. The burden was lighter, shared. As they walked out onto the porch together, the evening sky stretched wide above them, painted in soft clouds. Cole stood beside her, calm and steady. And Lena felt something bloom quietly inside her, something she had not known in a long time. Hope. Not just hope that things would improve, but hope that she could grow in a place where she felt seen, valued, and welcomed. A place where she truly belonged. With Cole beside her, she no longer feared the shadows of her past. For the first time, she looked toward the future with gentle courage. The morning after Lena decided to stay felt different, as if the air around the ranch carried a softer light. She woke before the sun fully rose, feeling calmer than she had in many months. The fear that usually greeted her in the morning was still there, in a small corner of her heart. But it was quieter now, softened by Cole's gentle words from the night before. She stepped outside onto the porch, hugging her shawl around her shoulders. The sky was still pale, touched with the first hints of dawn. Dew glistened on the grass, shining like tiny drops of glass. The horses in the pasture moved slowly, stretching their necks toward the fresh morning light. Cole was already awake, as usual. She saw him by the barn, checking a wooden gate that he had repaired days earlier. He moved with calm confidence, like someone who had lived most of his life in harmony with the land around him. When he noticed her, he gave a small smile, warm, quiet, steady. It wasn't a wide or showy smile, but it held more kindness than many words could. "Morning, Lena," he said. "Good morning," she replied, feeling a gentle warmth fill her chest. She walked toward him, and for the first time, she didn't feel shy or uncertain. She still had fears, of course, but something inside her had changed. She wasn't walking toward a stranger anymore. She was walking toward someone she trusted. Cole handed her a small basket. "Thought you might want to help gather eggs today," he said. "The chickens were quite busy yesterday." Lena let out a small laugh, light and soft. "I'd like that." They walked to the chicken coop together. Cole opened the gate, letting her go in first. The chickens clucked peacefully around them, wandering near Lena's shoes with curious little steps. She knelt down, carefully collecting the warm eggs from the nesting boxes. Cole watched her for a moment, making sure she was comfortable. "You're getting the hang of things here," he said gently. Lena looked up at him, her cheeks warming a little. "I'm trying." "You don't have to try so hard," he replied. "Just be yourself. That's more than enough." His words still touched her deeply every time he said them. She placed the last egg in the basket, stood up, and felt lighter than she had felt in years. After finishing their morning chores, they shared breakfast at the kitchen table. The sunlight filled the room, making the wooden walls glow warmly. Cole ate quietly, enjoying the food, while Lena watched him with a kind of soft appreciation. She noticed the way his hands rested calmly on the table, the way he always moved gently, never rushing anything. "Cole," she said softly. "Thank you." He looked up. "For what?" "For everything," she said. "For being patient with me. For not letting me leave. For caring. Janstu. 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 Cole shook his head slightly. "You don't have to thank me for that, Lena. Caring about someone doesn't need a reason." Her heart fluttered, not from nervousness, but from something warm and gentle. She had never known what it felt like to be accepted simply because she existed. After breakfast, Cole asked her if she wanted to see the far side of the pasture. "There's a spot I think you'd like," he said. "A quiet one," she agreed, and they saddled Willow together. Cole helped her mount first, then settled behind her just as he had on the day she arrived. Only this time, she didn't feel nervous or uncertain. She felt safe, leaning back slightly, trusting him completely. They rode across the open land, the wind brushing softly against their faces. Lena closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the fresh scent of grass and earth. She felt free, not trapped by fear, not weighed down by expectations, just free. After a while, they reached a small hill overlooking the ranch. Wildflowers grew gently along the slope, yellow, white, and soft purple blooms that danced slowly in the breeze. Cole helped her down from the horse, and they stood side by side, taking in the view. "It's beautiful," Lena whispered. "I come here whenever I need to clear my mind," Cole said softly. "Thought you might feel peaceful here too." Lena touched one of the flowers lightly. "I do." They stood quietly for a long moment. Then Cole spoke again, his voice gentle. "Lena, I want you to know something." She turned to him, waiting. "You don't have to decide your whole life today," he said. "You don't have to decide what your future looks like yet. Just take things one step at a time. I'll be beside you for every step, if you'll have me there." Lena felt her breath catch. "I would like that," she said softly. Cole nodded, his expression filled with calm warmth. "Good." He didn't reach for her hand or try to close the space between them. He gave her time, always giving her time. And that in itself made her heart open wider. As the day continued, they explored the pasture, walked by the small stream that ran along the property, and talked about simple things. Cole's favorite horses, the best spots to grow vegetables, Lena's childhood memories, even small dreams she never thought she'd share with anyone. She told him she had always loved to draw but never had proper paper. Cole listened carefully, then said, "We'll get you some. You should have the things that make you happy." It was such a simple promise, yet it meant the world to her. When they returned to the ranch, the sun was already beginning to set. The sky glowed with soft colors, like brushed gold and gentle rose. Lena stood beside Cole on the porch, watching the horizon slowly change. "I never thought my life could feel peaceful," she whispered, more to herself than to him. Cole looked at her quietly. "You deserve peace." His words settled deep in her heart, soothing old wounds she had carried for too long. "Cole," she said softly, turning to him, "I'm glad I stayed." He smiled, small but genuine. "I'm glad too." They stood close, not touching, but close enough that Lena felt his presence like a warm blanket. She didn't feel lonely anymore. She didn't feel afraid of choosing her own path. For the first time, she felt like she belonged somewhere. Later that night, after sharing a quiet supper, Lena went to her room and sat by the small window. She looked out at the stars. Feeling a gentle calm inside her, she remembered the day she arrived, shaking and overwhelmed, convinced she had made a mistake. She thought about Cole's first words to her. "You don't need to pretend with me." He had kept that promise every day since. She opened the drawer beside her bed and took out a sheet of paper. It was the letter she had written to her family earlier that day, one she had quietly written after talking to Cole. She read through it again, making sure it expressed what she needed to say. In the letter, she told her family that she cared for them and wished them well, but that she could only help in small ways. She explained that she was building a new life, one that she needed to protect with steady steps. She told them she hoped they would understand. It wasn't a letter of fear anymore. It was a letter of courage, gentle but firm. A letter written by someone who finally believed she had the right to her own happiness. She placed it in an envelope and set it on the table. Cole would take it to town in the morning. When she lay down to sleep, the night felt peaceful. The world felt kinder. Her heart felt steady. The next morning, Lena joined Cole on the porch again, standing beside him as the sun rose over the ranch. He glanced at her and smiled softly. "Ready for a new day?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, I am," and she truly meant it. Over the next weeks, Lena settled into the life she had once feared. She planted flowers near the porch, helped Cole with the horses, and even began drawing again on the paper Cole brought home from town. She filled pages with simple sketches, flowers, horses, the ranch, and sometimes, without meaning to, Cole's calm smile. They grew closer in quiet, natural ways through shared meals, soft conversations, gentle laughter, and a growing trust that wrapped around them like a warm blanket. Neither rushed anything. Neither forced anything. Everything grew slowly, like a seed planted in soft soil, finding the sunlight and learning to bloom. One evening, as they stood on the hill again, watching the sky turn shades of gold, Cole spoke softly. "I hope you know," he said, "that you don't need to pretend for me. Not now. Not ever." Lena turned to him, her eyes shining. "I know," she whispered, "and that's why I'm here." Cole's expression softened, full of quiet relief and something deeper. They didn't need grand declarations. They didn't need promises made too quickly. They simply stood together, two souls who had found comfort, trust, and gentle affection in each other's presence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lena realized that her journey, once filled with fear, had led her to a place where her heart could finally rest. Not because Cole rescued her, not because she had nowhere else to go, but because they had chosen each other, slowly and honestly, and that made all the difference.